Hello, FlutterFlow developers, and welcome to API Flow YouTube channel. In this video today, we will discuss about how to efficiently query our data from MySQL database or to any other from any other database through API or from some data sources, and how efficiently filter it and display it depending from your scenario. So in first approach, I will use approach that will use fully abilities of FlutterFlow to store data into different states, like in app state and a page state. And this approach is very good. It's very efficient if you have not very large amount of data, so you can store it locally in application and then filter this data and display related lists when you use your application in real time. So during this demo, I will build a very small app, like this will be a car rental demo, and we will display some brands of cars carousel image, and we will render a list of cars for rent, and we will connect these brands panel with list of available cars. So I have MySQL database, and I will connect it using API Flow service. So I will create a new project. I will use MySQL service to connect. I already connected my database, but if you will need to connect it, remember that you need to specify MySQL server, then server port, username for your database access, and password. So when you connected your database, you will be able to access data. You need to select database you will use, and then to select a table that you will use with your project. In my case, I will use brands and cars, so I will deselect or everything else, and we can specify what we want to use. We will leave only select operation. After this, you publish your project. So now we can download our Open API definition. Let's do it. And then we need to go to our API Flow project, API call section, plot file, and select our downloaded file. Then we need to go to our project and copy authorization header for our project to enable access to it, and then add this header to API group in FlutterFlow. Save this information, and now we have operation to list brands and list cars, and we will use these operations to receive our data. So we go to list brands and send a test API call, and as you can see, we have some brands with ID, name, and logo in our database. We will copy this information to generate a data type. We go to data type part of FlutterFlow project, and we'll import a new data type from JSON. We will call it brand data type. So we paste our JSON. Let's copy some part of it, I suppose. It will be better. One record, and now FlutterFlow create the record for our data. But what we need to do, we need to change logo field to image path field. So we have this image path field now, and we will be able to use it to render our carousel. So what we want to do now, we need to go to list brands action and specify that we want to parse our result as data type, and this is a list. Then save this result, these changes. So let's go to our page and bind our carousel to data. We will use, as I mentioned already, application state in this sample. So I will add app state variable, and I will call it brands. And next, what I will do, I need to specify data type, brand, and this is a list. Create. Now we will fill this variable when our page is loaded. So we will go to our actions of our page. When it loads, we want to do action, but let's create parallel action. I will explain why, because parallel action will allow us in parallel to query brands and cars at the same time. So we will have better performance in result. And now we will do API call. We want to query our MySQL list brands, and then we want to save it to variable in our app state. So we will, when it completed, update app state, save it to brands, set value, action output, API brands as data type. So this will allow us to save our brands into this application state variable called brands, and then we can use it inside page. So let's go to our carousel, and here we will bind generate children generation logic to this app state variable. So we select our app state variable brands without changes, and we will call this variable brands. Let's save it. Okay, and now our data, all data for our carousel will be rendered using that data from app state. And as you remember, in our brands data type, we have this logo field. So now we will bind our image path to that logo field. We will go to data binding, brands item, data structure field, logo, and we'll bind this data. Let's check how it look like, how it works. So as you can see, our data is rendered, our logos is rendered, and we can see them here in this pretty carousel. It's working. It have, by the way, some issues still when it reloads. We will show you, and we will fix it later. As you can see, it have some problem when it loads, but I will explain it later in other video about how to prevent this issue. So now what we want to do, we want to query our cars and then connect these two lists together. So we have our cars in database, and let's create a data type for that data. So we go to data types, import data type car, and let's paste our JSON, and FlutterFlow generate a car data type for us. The only thing we want to recreate main image field, as it does not recognize it as image path at the moment. We will create an image path field. So now we have these cars, and we will do same. We will go to app state, app state variable, call it cars, and we will use data type car. It's a list. We will save it here, and now we go to API calls, and here we will parse as data type car is a list. Save. So now our result of cars query will be saved as a list. As I mentioned, this approach is focused on case when you have not so much data. I suppose few hundreds of records will work fine. So if you have a limited database and you need to just to display some related data and filter it, it will be very efficient approach to do this using only app state variables and page state variables. So next what we do, we go here and we will on page load do backend query on backend query and we'll list cars. This will be API cars variable. And next what we will do, we will save our API cars to our cars variable set value action output API cars as data type. So now when we load these two lists, they will be saved into app state variables, and we want to render children of our list view. I actually have a container inside, and as you can see some image, name of the car, and price for rent per day. So I will go to my generating children from variable tab in list view and will do same as I did before for my brands. So now I will pick app state, cars, no changes. I will name it cars, save, okay. And now I will bind path to my cars data structure field. Main image, as you can see, it's available because it's image path. Now I will bind this text cars item data structure field name. Okay, and now here in text I already put text combination, so I will add another text here. We'll move it here, and I will have dollar and price. It called data structure field rent in my case, and then I will have this format. So now I will render my cars list in this list view. Let's check how it works. So as you can see, our cars are rendered now, and we can see a list of our cars. But for now, when we click like this top bar, nothing changes. Filtering not working. So we need to do something to connect these two lists. And this was our idea, how to efficiently filter data using app state and page state in this case. So next, what I will do, I will go to my page and will create a local page state variable. And I will name it filter red cars. So it will contain a list of cars that correspond to brand when it's selected. So I will check that this is data type, it's a list, and it's a cars list. So I will save it. And now what we will do when I click on this image, I want to filter list of all my global cars and save to that variable, page variable, only cars that correspond to brands that I selected. So what we do, we select state management, update page state, filtered cars, set value, and here I am searching for my app state, cars. So we use full list of cars. And next I select filter list items by condition. And this single condition will be first. Item in list, data structure field, brand equal to, and my selected brand will be in brands item data structure field ID. So I will check if brand of my car is same as brand I just clicked confirm. So now when I click this top image, my list will be filtered, but for now this list view is bound to cars variable, and cars contains a list of all cars, and here we will change it from app state to page state, and we'll use filtered cars variable from page state now. And this is the power of FlutterFlow binding. I do not need to change anything else because this variable is renamed as cars, and we already use this cars variable for this list view generation and for all our bindings. So it will automatically, when we change source, will work as expected. But now also what we need to do when I reload my page, when I load it first time, to show my cars as it now renders from page variable, I also need to update page state, and here I need to set filtered cars to all cars from my action output. So I will here we'll have same full list of cars in both my app state and my page state variables. So now we will go and see how it works. I will reload this demo. I will reload this test. So now we have my app reloaded, and when I click Tesla, I see only Tesla. When I click Audi, I see Audi, and etc. and etc. So this works. As you can see, it works, and it filters data very fast using app state variables, using page state variables, and using internal generated FlutterFlow logic. This is the first approach that I wanted to show you. Another one is related when you have big amount of data. So if you have big amount of data and server, and you need to query it using portions, and it do not work so well, it will not work so well with your app state, because if you have hundreds of thousands of data, it can be very memory inefficient and app become very slow. So then we need to query our data to server. And how we will do this? In this case, we will work with queries in our list view directly, and we will bind our state and children generation to server query. So in this case, we will add a query here, and then we will build a list based on our queried result, and it will work with server directly. So to do this, we will change a little bit our application. First of all, we will go to our app state. We can use page state for this. We will go to our page state, and we'll create a new variable. It will be called selected brand, and it will be integer, and it will be selected brand. Let's put 0. Okay, confirm now. And so we created our selected brand variable, and now we will use ability of API flow to filter data based on data fields. So if we will specify filter like brand equals 1, and we will send this request to API flow, it will return us only data that equals to that filter, that satisfies that filter. So what we will do now, we will here build a query for our list view, and this query will contain a logic to query our data from server based on selected brand. We will use list cars and we will set additional variables. In this case, we will use filter. It will have a value. Of app filter will have combination of text, and there will be, first of all, will be brand equals add text, page state, selected brand, confirm, add text, space or space, add text. And if we don't selected any brand yet, it will, as you remember, will be 0. We will check if our page state selected brand confirm equals 0. So it will be combined as a query that brand equals model selected brand or brand is 0. So confirm, we will have this filter and we will save our query, and we will have this query as in our data source. So now we will select as a source of our data not page state but list cars response. This is our query that we attached to this list view, and it's very important. So now we will use our dynamic queries that we sent to server as a source of our values for our list. Let's check how it works. So let's see now. As you can see, our data is loading. It's loading from server and it requires some time to be rendered, and it displays list as expected. But for now, our filter don't work again. Why? Because we don't bound our action that is bound to image at the moment. We don't change it to work with our page state variable. So here, instead of filtering, we will leave it just we will have it. We will now initialize selected brand from values that we just selected in our brands item data structure field ID. So now this variable will be initialized from brands item ID from related to this image brands that we selected. Let's check now how it works. So now, as you can see, our cars is rendered again, and when we click our brands, it renders data and it works through server. As you can see, it's a little bit longer delay, but it's still fine. And if you have a larger amount of data, this approach will work better because you can have also additional options. I will talk about them in a moment. You can do some pagination logic to represent your data and to query data in a more efficient way. So to do this, you need to use ability to enable pagination data. You can use one more. Sorry. You can use enable infinity scroll, so it will query data in portions using our specific variables that is related to offset and limit of the query. So offset will return us data based on offsets that we put. It will skip some amount of data from our request. So in this case, we will set offset to our loaded items amount. So FlutterFlow will track how much data it's already loaded, and then we'll send this as an offset. By default, when list is empty, offset will be 0, and then after it loaded some amount of data, it will load a next portion and etc. and etc. And for control of amount of data that is loaded, we, for example, can set a limit to like 100 and just set it. So now in our backend query, we will have a logic that will track amount of data loaded, and it will be set also some limit will be sent to server to keep our data uploading when we will scroll this page down and when we will like when we need to display additional amount of data to our user. Sadly, I don't have so much data in my database, but you can try with a bigger amount of data in your database and see how it works, and it works very good. So as you can see, it works through server and it query data, and it will skip already loaded data and will upload more data dynamically when you do this. With page state variable, app state variable, you can do this because it will require you much of very complex configuration. If you want to query page by page, it will require you to implement all this logic all by yourself. In case of data query, it's implemented by FlutterFlow already. So second approach is more scalable, when first approach is more efficient in a way when we work with the data. Thank you for your attention. I hope this will be helpful. Let me know if you have any questions related to data filtering and how to display connected data. You can use big amount of services using API flow and connect them to FlutterFlow. So not only for MySQL, for other services, it will work almost the same. We provide filtering options, pagination option. So I hope this video will allow you to boost your development experience with FlutterFlow and connecting external data. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day.